Hello, I'm former journalist and political campaigner Phil Doherty, and this is Politics Unravelled. Um, Please give the video a like and subscribe in the way in, as it helps the channel enormously. Thank you. Well, I think it would be a shrewd guess that the SNP has actually spent the INDYREF2 cash. And let's not forget that that cash was actually ring-fenced, which is, of course, potentially illegal if you spend it. It's one of those sort of like crimes that Police Scotland and the Fiscal Procurator seems to have missed. But at the moment, of course, unless for proper investigation, we won't know if it's a crime or not. Instead, both the police and the Procurator Fiscal, they concentrated on the separate thieving by Peter Murrell, who was Sturgeon's husband at the time, though they have separated since. But where has the actual ring-fenced INDYREF2 cash gone to? Who spent it, or potentially even stole it, because it certainly wasn't all Peter Murrell. Now, the SNP had to repay £500,000, which it had from personal loans. I'm not going to mention the name who give them the loans. Not really fair on them because they're completely innocent in this story. And the SNP had actually paid 1.6 million back, but they actually still had £500,000 to pay back in 2017. Now, when Sturgeon announced in 2017 the INDYREF2 crowdfunder, it was actually stated it was ring-fenced for the next INDYREF. And as you'll no doubt know, ring-fence is a legal term that states that money raised can only be used for what it was stated at the time of the appeal. Now, what it wasn't raised for was for the day-to-day running of the SNP. Nor was it raised for the SNP to spruce up its headquarters with new desks and computers and pot plants and, such things. Not going to be used to pay back loans or not to pay for election campaigns or desks. All that would be illegal. Now, did the SNP use the ring-fence INDYREF2 cash for any of the above? You see, if it did, it basically conned those SNP supporters who donated cash. They didn't donate their hard-earned cash to spruce up the SNP headquarters. Nor did they, donate cash for the day-to-day running of the SNP. No, they were specifically asked to donate to a fund for a second independence referendum. And bear in mind that many of these donors are from low-income families or pensioners or from hard-working families with limited budgets. Now, cast your mind back to 2017 and when Theresa May committed hara-kiri by announcing a snap general election. She lost the slim majority the Tories actually held and only won an overall because Ruth Davidson's Tories, Scottish Conservatives, gave the SNP a real kicking in that election. And that kicking by the Tories basically ended any of this INDYREF2 fantasy in any case. Think about this, okay? By the end of 2017, the SNP only had 7,906 quid in its bank account. Now, this is where it becomes curious because June 2017, it had reported donations of £510,000 that year. Yet, according to the Electoral Commission, the SNP submitted a spending return in the general election of 1.6 million. Then think about 2019, when the SNP launched another fundraiser, the so-called ScotRef1, that brought in more than about £185,000. Now, both of those added together in total comes to £667,000, and this is the money that everyone's talking about. But the £82,000 from the previous fundraiser was ring-fenced, but it appears to have already been spent by the SNP. That now is a potential breach of Scottish law. Well, it wasn't spent on an Indy referendum, was it? And it was ring-fenced, which is a legal term, meaning it could not be spent on the day-to-day running of the SNP, not office furniture, and not elections either. So this is pure speculation. But where did it actually go? Was the ring-fenced fundraiser cash used to pay back loans? Did the SNP dupe its supporters with fake INDYREF claims so it could pay back a significant loan? It's a question that's got to be asked. Or did it actually go and spend it on the general election? Either way, not okay. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a solicitor. I don't know the law, as well as they do. But I mean, it seems rather dodgy. When you look at legislation, when it comes to fraud legislation and embezzlement, it's definitely dodgy. Or wrong-footed by the snap general election held by the Tories. Did it actually spend it on the campaign? Or did it buy office equipment for the HQ? Office desks and comfy chairs and nice potted plants and such forth? Well, one thing is for sure. The SNP didn't spend it on an INDYREF2 because there wasn't one. There wasn't going to be one. And quite frankly, the SNP knew that. And wasn't the SNP, Mr. John Swinney, playing a sleight of hand on Holyrood when he said that the fundraiser wasn't ring-fenced? Well, trying to fool people by confusing the INDYREF2 with the ScotRef fundraiser held in 2019 is not going to work. Because the first one, the INDYREF2 fundraiser, that was definitely ring-fenced. Because you see, the first fundraiser, the INDYREF2 one, was ring-fenced, and that is a legal term. So unless there was an INDYREF in 2017 that voters and campaigners weren't aware of, how come the SNP only had £7,906 in its bank account at the end of the year? Where did the ring-fenced INDYREF fundraising cash go to? In 2017, the SNP had raised $482,000 for its INDYREF ring-fenced fundraiser. And by the end of 2017, the SNP should have had $482,000 plus the £7,906 in the party's bank account. But the SNP didn't have the £482,000 in its bank account. At the end of 2017, it had under £8,000 in its bank account. So the question has to be is, where did the cash from the ring-fenced INDYREF2 disappear to? Who was the magician with the sleight of hand that made it vanish? You see, 1 minute it was there, and then abracadabra, poof, it was gone. Where did it go to? It was as if it actually never existed. It was only a figment of Donna's imagination. It just disappeared. Nobody knows. Where did it go? Wow, what a magic trick. No, it wasn't Peter Murrell, or at least not all of it, who, his crime stretched back to 2010. No, it was the SNP itself who spent it. Swinney admitted this in Holyrood. Here's another question. Who told the police and the Procurator Fiscal to abandon the investigation into the INDYREF2's missing cash? The original complaint from Indy supporters was about the ring-fenced INDYREF2 money. And who told the police and the Procurator Fiscal to concentrate instead on the separate theft by Murrell instead? And here's another question. Was Murrell thrown to the wolves to hide another crime? Because using ring-fenced cash for anything other than what it was ring-fenced for, and raised for, is fraud under Scottish law. You see, no matter how much the SNP tries to wriggle, there is far more to this than Murrell's light fingers. That's for definitely sure. And this is why I personally believe only a full Westminster inquiry into all aspects of this affair should be held and not a Holyrood one, because it'll just turn into a circus. Let's admit it.